Today, I have a solo episode for you. It's just me, but I had a few things that I wanted to share with you that are somewhat personal, but I think you're going to glean some benefit from what I'm going to share with you. I recently made a post, it's been a few weeks ago by the time this episode airs, where I talk about why I decided not to compete in bodybuilding in the future. So let me back up a little bit because I know I have new listeners, and some of you might not know that for many years, about a decade, I competed in the world of bodybuilding. I started out in figure, which I'll explain what these names mean in just a moment, and then I moved into bikini bodybuilding. And I did, about 15, maybe 16 shows over the decade. Most of them were national shows. So, what got me into bodybuilding? When I was in my late 40s and nearing 50, I started to see changes in my body that I did not like. I didn't necessarily have a problem with weight, but I had a high body fat and I was what you would call a skinny fat. My main mode or form of exercise was running and cycling, and I would do 100-mile bike rides and marathons, which are over 26 miles. I trained every single day. I rarely took a day off. I did boot camps and spin classes. I would compete on the cycle and compete out running in different races, such as the Boston Marathon, which I did twice. And I enjoyed the sport. I did very well with running in particular and was regionally ranked and on my way to being nationally ranked when I gave up the sport of running due to injuries. But what I was finding was the more I ran, the more cardiovascular exercise that I did, the worse I looked, the flabbier I looked. So, yes, I was thin and my clothes fit great, but I didn't look that great in a bathing suit or in shorts, really anything like that that showed my body because I just did not have that muscle tone at all. And I was having a lot of symptoms going through the perimenopausal journey into menopause. Hot flashes, trouble sleeping at night, brain fog, mood swings, you name it, I had it. So as I approached 50, I thought, you know what? I've got to figure this out because I don't like how my body's looking. And I would see women that I admired. I was just starting to get on to social media and searching on the World Wide Web. And I would see the bodies of women that I thought, okay, that is what I want. And generally, the look was muscular and strong, but not muscular in a masculine way. They were very feminine, they were very beautiful and attractive women, but I loved the strength and what I saw as tone in their body and in their muscles. And that's what I strive to accomplish. Well, long story short, I did decide to do a bodybuilding show. And there's different divisions within the bodybuilding world. There's different organizations and different divisions. So in in the female side, we have traditional bodybuilding, and that's the bigger look that you see that's very muscular, where they're flexing and up on stage and all oiled up. Then you have physique, which is generally just a step down from bodybuilding. It's extremely muscular. Same thing, they pose on stage, no shoes, but not quite as big as the bodybuilder gals. From there, it moves to figure. And at the time that I decided to compete, figure girls look like bikini girls now, and I'll get to that in a moment. But the figure girls were very muscular, but still feminine, strong looking, nice shoulders, good glutes and legs. That's what I wanted. So I settled on the figure division. There's also the bikini, which is a little bit softer than the figure look, or it used to be a little bit softer. Now, what happened over the years as I was competing is the women got bigger and bigger, more and more muscular, And you saw figures start to look like physique and physique start to look like bodybuilding, and bikini began to look like figure, how I started out. And that's why I moved to the bikini division, because my body simply was not built like a figure girl. I didn't have the size, I didn't have the muscle to really compete in that arena at a certain point. So I went into the bodybuilding world because I wanted to change my body. And I thought this is a great way to do it because it's going to put a little fire under me. It's going to put a little pressure under me. If I know I'm getting on stage and I'm doing this show, and I was not a stage person, I had stage fright, very introverted, did not like the idea of getting on stage in the skimpy bikini. And the figure and bikini girls wear very, very high heels. I was not used to the high heels, but I committed to do a show first in my local studio where I worked as a group fitness instructor, yoga instructor, and personal trainer at the time. So the only stage experience I had was getting up on stage to teach a cardio class, such as cardio kickboxing or a weightlifting class or yoga, things such of that nature. But to get up in the skimpy little suit was super scary. Well, needless to say, fast forward, I did it. I got bit by the bug, and I loved how it drove me to meet my goals and to get better and better and to improve my physique over time. And I did do that because it definitely did not improve to the degree I wanted in that first year. It took time. It takes time to put on that muscle. It takes time to dial in your eating and your exercise plan and really dig into this sport, which I did. So I went on to do well at the regional local level, which then led to going to nationals and competing at the national level, which I did for the first time in 2016. Well, about the time I was getting ready for that show, and for those of you who have been in my community a while, you're going to know this story, but I'll go ahead and tell it again for the people who might be new coming into my world. In 2016, I was having severe joint pain, mainly in my feet, and I was having profound fatigue. I was tired just walking across the room. I was personal training a lot of clients at the time, and I noticed that I just wasn't having the stamina in my workouts or even with my personal training. Because when you're personal training, you're on your feet, you're fetching weights, you're helping clients, you're standing there for long periods of time on a hard floor on your feet. And as I said, you could be doing some lifting as well as you fetch weights and dumbbells and plates and bring them over to the client. It was getting more and more difficult. At the same time, I had some labs done that showed that my kidney function was suffering. Well, I was at a loss. So I went to a doctor, actually went to a kidney specialist. And the kidney specialist found the RA, the rheumatoid arthritis factor, in my blood work. Now, rheumatoid arthritis, if you don't know, is an autoimmune disease, and it is not the same as osteoarthritis. That's very, very important to distinguish here, because a lot of people will say to me, "Oh, I have that too. I have arthritis in my elbow or my hip." Not the same thing. Rheumatoid disease or rheumatoid arthritis is an autoimmune condition where basically your body attacks itself. It attacks its own joints. It can cause extreme joint damage over time. It can also attack the kidneys, the lungs, and the heart. It can attack the vascular system. Even the brain can be affected. It's a systematic disease where the inflammation is all the way through your body. So he found this in my blood along with a few more markers being off, and he said, "I think you have a real problem here." I went to a rheumatologist, and right before I stepped on stage, my diagnosis came back as having autoimmune disease, rheumatoid arthritis. Well, I decided I'm competing anyway. I'm going to be the poster girl, the poster woman for really pushing through and being able to do all the things you want to do despite having an autoimmune disease. Well, it turned out to be not as simple as that, as what I originally thought, but I pressed on and I really wanted to use my journey to inspire other women who might be struggling with the same thing. Did the competition on a national level. I was absolutely exhausted after going through everything I'd gone through, and I did really well. I took top 3 in a group that was very, very competitive in figure, over 50 figure. I was super excited. I was on fire to keep going. I was really starting to put that muscle on and get the look I wanted. At the same time, I began having pain down my left leg. I was completely perplexed. What was this pain? What was going on? And it kept getting worse and worse. And I even saw a doctor thinking I had a blood clot or some kind of hip issue that was radiating down the leg. They couldn't find any problems. Well, one day I went to the gym, and this was a couple of months after competing, maybe not even a couple of months, more like I'm going to say 6, 7 weeks. And all of a sudden, that pain was unbearable. It felt like somebody had lit a match and set my entire leg down to my foot on fire. This led to me going to doctors, going to the emergency room, having MRIs. Long story short, I had ruptured a disc at the L3, L4, and it was touching the nerve that controlled that left leg. So that's why I had the leg pain. It was stemming from my lower back. It wasn't my leg at all. It was my back. If you've had back issues, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's the same thing as the sciatica that goes down the back of the leg, except this was down the front. It got so bad I could not walk for a few months, or if I tried to walk, I could only be on my feet for very, very short periods of time. I couldn't work out. When I finally went back to working out, it was with the little tiny, 2-pound dumbbells, but I was desperate just to do anything I could. So I worked with body weight and these tiny dumbbells. Slowly, 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 I came back. But I never ever from that point forward was able to lift the same amount on my upper or my lower body as I had prior to the spinal problems. Doctors, some doctors, not all, but some doctors and physical therapists told me to take up pool walking, never to lift another weight again, but I did not accept that. I went on to train as best I could with my problems, with my pain. Competed in 2017, did not do well because, again, I did not have the size, and the figure division was beginning to get bigger and bigger and more muscular, and I just did not have the muscle, the density, or the size on stage. But I did it. I got up there and I kept going year after year. And finally in 2019, I got back to top 3 and back to looking somewhat like what I used to look like, despite not being able to lift as heavy. And what do you think happened? I ruptured another disc, L4, L5. This one, the contents moved forward onto the nerve controlling my left leg. And for weeks, I could not walk. And I didn't have as much of a problem as the first time because I recognized it this time and I stopped all activity as soon as I did. So I healed faster. But again, it was right back to the little dumbbells, the light weight, the body weight. Months of getting back into it. I moved to the bikini division, competed. I placed all times that I competed. So 2020, 2021, I competed twice in 2022. Last year, I realized, you know what? I'm not getting the same enjoyment and fulfillment that I used to from this sport. And I realized that I was having a lot of stress and anxiety along with it. So first of all, definitely could not challenge myself with the weights, especially on the lower body. I could do pretty good with the upper body and my back, but the lower, and as far when I say my back, I mean like my lats, latissimus dorsi, upper to middle back was fine because it didn't really involve the lower back. I did pretty well there, shoulder presses, bicep curls, all that was good. but I couldn't work the lower body. And when you're bikini and you need to work your lower body, it's difficult. I managed to grow my glutes, really improve my glutes, but my hamstrings were always lagging behind because I could not heavy deadlift, I could not heavy squat, could not heavy leg press. So that part of my body was just always lagging. And it gave me anxiety because I knew I'm going to get up on stage with ladies who have been able to train to the full extent, and I have not. So I had that stress. And I just began to have stress in general about re injuring myself. Anytime I pushed myself a little bit further trying to make those gains, I'd be flat on my back, having to lie down, take some type of pain medication, and wait for this to pass until I could go back to the gym and train again. So the enjoyment had started to seep out of this. And other things began to happen in my life too. And that's what I want to share with you briefly today is some of the things that I had to look at and why I suddenly had to pull back from something that had been a part of my life for 10 years. I had not had a summer where I wasn't prepping for a competition. I had not had a 4th of July where I wasn't, eating out of Tupperware and not able to do the things that or partake of the foods at barbecues and things like that throughout the summer. I had not had a Mother's Day where I wasn't prepping, a Father's Day where I wasn't prepping, and even a few times a birthday where I was prepping for a show. So this was going to be new for me. And I made that decision, okay, we're going to step back and we're not going to plan a competition for 2023. Now, believe me, I thought about it. It kept coming back and it kept coming back. And it was because it had been a part of my life so long, I didn't know what to do with myself. I didn't know what to do with my training. I didn't have that goal before me. Now, I did not give up bodybuilding. I train 5 to 6 days a week, typically 5. I do cardio, not a huge amount, but I do enough for that cardiovascular fitness. And I eat well. I do eat enough protein. I watch my carbs and fats. I watch the quality of my food. It is largely organic, whole food as much as I can possibly do. I don't eat junk. I have something here and there, especially if I'm traveling, but pretty much the lifestyle is the lifestyle, and I kept that. But it was so weird not to have the goal. So I said, no, you're going to give yourself the full year and you're not going to jump out, hire a coach, and jump right back into the fire with this. You need to think about it. And I did other things, which I'm going to talk about in the moment about clearing space, which stepping back from bodybuilding, not bodybuilding, but bodybuilding competing, allowed me to clear that space. And just this past month, as I'm recording this in the month of September, I realized I don't really want to do it anymore. Now, something might change in the future. I don't know. I don't like to say never ever, but at this point, I just don't want to compete anymore. And it's not that I think that the world of bodybuilding is unhealthy or bad. I just think it's not right for me at this time in my life. So I'm going to walk you through the reasons, and what I'm hoping is that you might see a bit of your story in here, not with bodybuilding, but with other parts of your life where you feel like, you know what, it's time to step back from that and do things a little bit differently. So turning 60 definitely was a point where I began to think of things differently. I stopped focusing so much on aesthetics and I began focusing on health, longevity, and quality of life. Now, believe me, I still want to look great. I still post pictures in a bikini. I still post pictures on Instagram in cute little outfits. Yes, I want to look great, but it's not my main focus. My main focus is the long term, the health, the longevity, the quality of life. And that's the focus I have with my clients too. That is the focus of the program. Now the side effect is looking great and your clothes fitting, and we still aim for those goals, but health is the main goal, longevity, health span, quality of life. So number one reason I had to step back is my spine. I needed to have a little bit of grace and room to not work my legs so heavy and so hard. Now, it's still a focus for me. Glutes, legs, quads, hamstrings, still a focus because I need that bone density. I need that strength. I need that balance. I need that blood glucose, blood sugar regulation. And legs, having strong legs and muscle in your legs is a big part of that. But that point where I felt like I had to push it and hope something didn't happen, I had to pull back from that. And now I feel good knowing, hey, if something is hurting my back or I'm getting that pain down my leg, I now have the grace and the space to step back and go, you know what, I probably deadlifts aren't a good idea for me. They need to be completely off the table. Now, I've said that before, but I kept doing them. I would take them off the table and then do them because I knew I had a competition coming up. But I could never really connect with the muscles because I would get that radiating pain down my legs. And now I don't feel that pressure. So that's number one. Number two is my autoimmune. It is much more controlled at this point. But the time my autoimmune was found, it was pretty advanced, and they believe I had it for a long time and that it was slow advancing. So I know people say you can reverse this, and all autoimmune diseases are reversible. I would say exercise a little caution when people give that kind of opinion that all conditions are reversible because I think, sometimes that just isn't true. Sometimes we can't get past it. And what that does is sort of blame the person that is sick, not sick, but struggling, probably a better word. I don't like the word sick, but struggling with the autoimmune disease or whatever it might be, a thyroid issue, whatever it is, it's almost blaming the individual. Like if you'd done this and this and this, and if you did this perfectly and took every nightshade out of your diet, you wouldn't have that. Trust me, I've gone down the rabbit hole with a lot of different eating ways and eliminating the nightshades and eliminating this and eliminating that. And honest to goodness, at the end of the day, I've still struggled with RA. So the reason that I feel bodybuilding is in opposition to staying healthy and avoiding relapses into my RA, into my rheumatoid disease, the autoimmune, is because the bodybuilding style, when you're getting ready for a competition, it's largely healthy. It's good for the most part. Your strength training, you are eating on point. You are not having any junk in your diet. The problem is, as you get closer and closer to the stage, it's like throwing things off the bus. By the time you get to the last, I'm going to say 8 weeks, 6 weeks, it depends on the individual, you might be suffering from some micronutrient deficiencies. You are not getting enough fats in your diet. You're not getting enough things in your diet. You can only remain on this type of diet for a short period of time. It's a window of time because it isn't sustainable. Your body fat goes down very, very low. For a woman, maybe 10%, 11%, 12%, depends on the individual. That's low for a woman. And for a woman over the age of 50, over the age of 60, that can be problematic. And if that woman is struggling with a condition, that can be problematic as well. So I would feel like I wasn't getting the nutrition I needed leading up to the stage. It would make the fatigue from the RA 10 times worse. And by the time I would reach that last week, I would feel like I was just crawling. And I just reached a point where I just don't want to do that anymore. I want to eat well and fuel my body well, but I don't feel the need to take my body fat to that ultra, ultra low level. I'm lean. I'm lean, but I'm a healthy lean. I have enough body fat to sustain me. Number three, and this just recently happened, I had not had a bone density scan, DEXA scan, since I was, 50 years old, maybe, yeah, 50 years old. And I had fractured a metatarsal, and my podiatrist told me, you know what, you are thin. At that time, I didn't have a lot of muscle on me. I was doing a lot of running still. It was probably the final year that I ran. And he sent me for the bone density test. It showed my bone density was good. It was normal. It was great. So I didn't worry about it. Well, I didn't worry about it for over 10 years because I figured, you know what? I'm good. My vitamin D levels are great. I eat well. I have tons of muscle on my body. I do strength training and weight bearing exercises. I hike, I ruck, which I'm going to talk about rucking in just a moment and what that means and the benefits with bone density. But I thought, you know what? I need to have a baseline. I need to know what's going on with my body. So I requested it from my nurse practitioner. She sent me for the bone scan. And to my surprise, the femoral neck, so basically that is the top of the thigh bone, had osteopenia. So there's osteopenia and osteoporosis. And osteopenia is not osteoporosis. It's if you can think of it as the precursor, you've had some bone loss and you are at risk of developing osteoporosis in the future if this trend continues. So the other areas were normal. I was very thankful that the spine and hips were normal with bone density. I was really worried about my spine, but I was shocked that this little area, this top of the thigh bone, had osteopenia. So I began to research and found that that is a really risky, dangerous place to have this condition. It's a place that if you have a break, if you get osteoporosis, it's very serious and it can be fatal or crippling to break this bone. So of course I'm concerned. I've not yet had my appointment with my nurse practitioner, but again, I feel like with the bodybuilding diet, so to speak, as you come into the runway, those last couple of months, those last few weeks, and you're throwing out foods out of the bus, can't eat this, can't eat that. It is so simple what you're eating, and you're eating the same things over and over and over, and there is not much variety in your diet at all. I felt this is not a good idea for my bones, for my bone density to have micronutrient or healthy fats absent from my diet. I feel I need to really be concentrating on all the areas where I can improve my bone health and reduce my risks. I want to sit here a bit with the bone health because this is where I think it's going to be beneficial. Men get osteoporosis and osteopenia too. So if you're a man listening to this, you can be at risk as well, but women are at a far greater risk. I'm just going to share a few facts with you. So bones help us stand, help us move, and protect our vital organs. We don't think about that. And having brittle bones can be very, very dangerous. So with osteoporosis, a woman could be just sneezing and get a broken bone in her spine, for instance. Very disabling. It's something that we don't think about and we're not told to think about until it's too late. And I don't want it to be too late for you. So if you're listening, go get that DEXA and start to consider your bone health because it's important. Our bones store nutrients and minerals that actually keep us alive. So there's more than one function here. And as I mentioned, the risk of frailty and fracture shoots up as we age. Bone is living tissue and it's constantly being broken down and built up. From age 25 to about 50, this process stays the same. So the bone density doesn't move all that much. Now there's always situations where osteopenia and osteoporosis can develop, but for the most part, it's remaining relatively stable, meaning that it builds up and breaks down at the same rate, at an equal rate. But after 50, we lose estrogen, we lose the protection of estrogen, we start to lose muscle, we start to have more body fat, less muscle. it can break down and really accelerate, and over 60 accelerate again. So once again, age is a risk factor. Being underweight or overweight is a risk factor. Under muscled, as I mentioned, and some medications can cause this. So let's talk a little bit about the causes. Medications that can cause bone loss, not doing any type of weight bearing exercise. So you're underweight, you're under muscled, can cause this. A poor diet and poor lifestyle habits, such as drinking too much alcohol, can cause this as well, because and then your body isn't absorbing the micronutrients and minerals that it needs to keep your bones healthy. So let's look at a statistic here. Recent statistics from the International Osteoporosis Foundation worldwide found that worldwide, 1 in 3 women over the age of 50 and 1 in 5 here in the US will have fractures related to osteoporosis in their lifetime. That's just one set of statistics that I found online. And the scary thing is it doesn't have any signs. It's not like you go, oh, my bone's hurting and I must be losing bone. You don't have any signs. It's happening quietly. So now what are we going to do about it? The first thing women think of is calcium. I mean, even myself, it was the first thing I think of. But before you run out and jump to the dairy, or jump to the supplement, I want to give you a few more facts. Dairy isn't the only answer to getting your calcium needs, and many women have sensitivities to dairy, especially the way the dairy is produced here in the United States. I have a dairy sensitivity. I am able to do goat and sheep milk products, no problem. An occasional sprinkle of Parmesan cheese isn't an issue either, but I cannot consume large quantities of cheese. So that's an issue for me. So there's a lot of green leafy vegetables that have it, such as kale, oranges. Oranges have good calcium. Green chili, which we eat here in New Mexico, the spicy green chili, which we grow, can increase our calcium amounts. But it's not enough just to increase your calcium. You have to think about vitamin D, because vitamin D makes calcium bioavailable as much as possible. So your body can actually use it. So it's working in conjunction. And you really want to look at the D3 along with the K1 and K2, because the vitamin K, works along with the vitamin D to ensure that the calcium is absorbed. So sometimes it's an issue of absorbing. Maybe we're getting enough in our diet, but we're not absorbing it. So it's very important to check those vitamin D levels, and many people are deficient. Adequate protein. Protein makes up about 50% of our volume of our bone. Collagen, very important. You can supplement with that, do bone broth. Magnesium, omega-3s, and zinc are also important when it comes to supporting healthy bones. So with myself, I do the weight-bearing exercise. I'm in the gym at least 5 days a week lifting weight. My diet is good. My vitamin D levels are actually a little on the high side. So what can it be? The first thing I turn to is I'm not absorbing the vitamins and minerals as well as I should. So that's the piece I'm looking at right now. I'm going to look into being tested for celiac. I know I'm gluten sensitive, but I don't know whether or not I have celiac. So that can be an issue if you are not absorbing those minerals in your body. So it's getting at that root cause. And that's where I'm at right now, is the digestive piece of this. Am I actually digesting and absorbing things? Weight training and resistance training, as I mentioned, is really big. You want to load your spine, and not in a way that's going to hurt your spine, but you want that weight-bearing exercise. So overhead presses and squats, things such as that, really important. Hiking, jogging, light jogging can be very good. Although with my back, I can no longer jog very well. It hurts too much. The impact is too much. So what I like to do is something called rucking, and that is a hiking pack, so a backpack. The weights slide in and you put it on and you just walk with it. You can walk around the block, walk the dog, you can go hiking. That is my preferred way to get that impact on, a little bit of impact onto my bones so I can build some bone density. Climbing stairs is another one that can be good. So, bone health was a big reason because I feel like any kind of micro deficiency, macro deficiency in my meals, in my diet, in my nutrition is just not a good idea for me. And also being overly thin. And a lot of times when you get to the stage, you're tiny, all that body fat's gone. And it's not that you're necessarily skinny looking, but boy, you're a lot smaller version of yourself. And I just don't think I need to go there right now. Number four reason for me not returning to the stage is heart health. And if you are doing other things right now, and to coin a phrase that I've heard many times, if you're multitasking, come back to me now. This is important. Your heart health is important, and cardiovascular disease is the number one killer of women. And I know we worry about the breast health, we worry about cancer, and we should worry about those things, but our cardiovascular health is of prime importance. So, this is what happened with me. In my 30s, I was told I had a small heart murmur, that it was really nothing to worry about. It got a little bit more pronounced in my 40s, so I was sent to do a stress test. I had a few tests done on my heart. They determined I was perfectly fine, my heart was healthy, that it was just a little heart murmur and nothing to be concerned about. I heard it again in my 50s. Nothing to be concerned about, I was told. Well, last year I got really sick with a respiratory virus and actually went in because I wasn't sure, am I getting pneumonia? What's going on? And he heard a pronounced heart murmur and said, "Is there a cardiologist following you? You really need to see a cardiologist." So I took his words to heart. I went to my primary, who makes the referrals for the cardiologist, and she heard the heart murmur and agreed to make the referral. I did a bunch of testing, and long story short, excuse me, they found that I have bicuspid aortic congenital heart disease. That's a mouthful, right? It took me a while to even remember that. So bicuspid, basically you have these, I don't know what you call them, like channels that are supporting your heart and valve. And there's typically three of these to your aortic valve. I only have two, thus the name bicuspid. Interestingly enough, as I was Googling this and getting more information, I found that Arnold Schwarzenegger was born with the same condition. It is generally genetic. His mother had it. In fact, his mother died with it. And he wound up having two different surgeries to replace the aortic valve. He almost died with the first one that he had. This was when he was still acting in movies. And I think the second one was somewhat recent, that he had to have the valve replaced again, because they don't last forever. They last a pretty long time, but eventually you have to have them replaced. So I went to the cardiologist. He gave me the diagnosis. He was shocked that I did not know that I had this. And he said, "Now from here on out, we follow you. We have to follow you. So we need to get a baseline measurement of where you're at with your aortic valve and the stenosis. And from there, we follow. And if it gets any worse, we need to start to look at potential valve replacement or different procedures to help you." So it really wasn't my heart, it was the aortic valve, and it was nothing that I had done with my diet or lifestyle. It was something I was born with that just really didn't start to show up until now. So although I don't feel that preparing for a bodybuilding competition would necessarily strain the valve or make the condition worse, I feel once again that I need to focus on my health. And if I'm knee deep in a bodybuilding competition, I might miss something over here with my health, because it happens when you're training for a show. A lot of times, like, you're missing your mammogram, you're missing all of these important tests that you normally do, your skin exam with the dermatologist, because you're just like, I got to get to the gym. I got to get to the gym. I got to carry around all my meals in Tupperware. I've got to be meal prepping. I got to be getting my gallon of water. You are so focused on that that a lot of times other things take a back seat. And this leads me to my fifth and final reason for stepping back from bodybuilding, and that is to clear space for other things in my life. And this is another thing I've heard a lot. I've heard it online, I've heard it from coaches. If you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. If you say yes to something, you are saying no to something else. And that is entirely true, because if you're over here focused on this thing, you can't be focused on this other thing. There's only so many hours in the day. There's only so much mental and physical energy and time that we have. And if we spend a significant chunk on one thing, it is going to take away from other things. So last year I had started my book, but as soon as I was prepping for that 2022 show, I put it on the back burner because all I could think about was the show. So I did finish the book, as you know, or may know. It's called Finding Purpose in the Pause, Your Guide to Thriving in Menopause and Beyond. It's really written for women over 40 and 45, 50, and beyond. So really anywhere in that perimenopausal, menopausal, and postmenopausal journey. There's a lot of my own story in it. There's a lot of case studies from clients, although I changed the names and a few identifying factors just to protect their privacy. But there's so much packed into this book. And I never would have been able to finish the book if I had kept on the trajectory of competing last summer. It cleared that time, space, mental energy, and this was something I needed to get out in the world. It was important to me. I had wanted to write a book since I was 6, 7 years old. I loved reading as a child, and that was my aspiration. And I talked about writing a book all the way up to turning 60, 61, and deciding this is the year I'll do it. So now at the age of 62, I can say I am a published author. I will link to the book if you would like to pick up a copy. I am on Amazon. And if you enjoy the book, come and let me know. I actually have a free gift that I would like to give you. So just shoot me an email, carol@carolcovino.com, or find me on Instagram, and I would be happy to share that with you. It's just a thank you for taking the time to read my book. I also wanted to clear space to start to think about my business a little bit differently. I am in the process of reorganizing my business. This time I'm taking my time with the decisions, and I'm not jumping headfirst into projects or what I see other coaches doing. I'm trying to create a business that's going to work well and allow me time for myself, my family, my faith, and things that I enjoy. I have really reignited my faith in God. I have accepted a position as a group leader in a Bible study, a ministry that takes a significant commitment during the week. We have leaders meeting, and then we also have the meeting where we lead. So it's a good chunk of time, and I wanted that space. And so I'm rearranging my business, and I set aside the bodybuilding. It doesn't mean I'm not taking clients or working with clients. I am working with them in my Fit and Fierce program for women over 50. You can check that out on my website, carolcovino.com. So I am working with clients, and I do have some programs that I'm going to be releasing that are more do-it-yourself. So those will be coming soon. But I needed that space to rearrange my business, think about my business. I needed the space to reconnect with my faith. I needed the space for my family, so important to me, and spending time. My kids are grown, but spending time with my husband and really investing in my marriage is a priority for me, and I felt I couldn't do that if I hung on to the bodybuilding. And also, it's cleared some space for my podcast to bring different guests on, do some interviews, get some different points of view. You may have noticed there have been several different points of view on this podcast. And I invite you, listen to the interviews with an open mind. Sometimes I don't agree with every single thing my guest says, but I like giving them the courtesy and the room to express their beliefs. I recently did a couple different interviews where the coaches are more from the standpoint of vegan or plant-based, whereas I'm more from definitely not a carnivore, but I believe in a diet that is protein forward. So I do believe in the animal protein. I'm going to talk about that in a moment. I shifted a little bit of my perspective here, so I'm going to talk about that with lots and lots of plants and the fruits and the vegetables. And so really a combination of both quality animal protein, lots of fish and seafood, lots of veggies. So what I've done with my diet and the way that I'm currently eating is the Mediterranean style diet with a few adjustments to make it work for me. So I am gluten sensitive. So I really watch that I'm doing gluten-free starches. If the recipe calls for a starch, gluten-free pasta in moderation, only a small amount of dairy, which is typically sheep or goat. I don't do mozzarella cheese or anything like that, or cheddar. I stay away from it for the most part because it just doesn't agree with me. But what I love about the Mediterranean diet, and just to kind of break it down for you, is it's really fresh, whole foods, organic foods as much as possible. So I do quite a bit of fish, little bit of quality red meat. So once a week, I typically will have grass-fed, grass-finished beef. And then I will also do lots of vegetables, some fruits. I don't overdo the fruits, a little bit of dairy, as I mentioned, and just very high quality products. I do some chicken, so some poultry, and I vary my sources of meats and protein and poultry. I'll do a little bit of lamb or bison, things such as that. And it's really working for me because I'm enjoying my food, which was something that when I was competing, I just had I just wasn't enjoying my food. Maybe the first part of prep, but boy, by the time you get to that second half, it's just like eat the food right out of the Tupperware cold. Eat the cold tilapia with the cold asparagus, and it's all slimy, and you're sitting in the gym eating it. And there was just no enjoyment there. And the Mediterranean diet allows my husband and I to cook, do different recipes, and enjoy. So there you have it. I really hope that you find something there that's helpful for you, whether it's to look at your bone health, your heart health, maybe it's to let go of something that's not serving you anymore, that's taking up space in your life, and maybe affecting your health in an adverse way, even if it started out being something healthy. Just maybe putting aside something that is not allowing you to pursue other goals. So for sure, get in touch with me on Instagram. Facebook, my account was hacked 3 separate times and really in a terrible way that it was hacked. I'm not going to go into all the details, but as of the recording of this podcast, I do not have access to my Facebook account, my business account. So the best way to find me and connect with me is going to be on Instagram at Carol Covino Fitness. YouTube, same thing, at Carol Covino Fitness. You can always shoot me a message or an email, carol@carolcovino.com. Check out my book and my Fit and Fears program online. I am going to begin doing consultations for 2024 and opening the doors for that program to expand a bit in 2024. So you want to check that out. Read the page that describes it on my website and book a call with me. I also have a couple of links I want you to check out. The Life Fuel link that you're going to see in the show notes. I actually interviewed the CEO of this company, and he lived in the blue zones in Italy for a period of time. He's a former pro NFL football player, just really a delightful human being. And I loved his ethical approach to the supplements. And it's really simple. He just does the protein powders, the chocolate and the vanilla, and then he does 2 different types of protein bars. They are plant-based, all quality ingredients, Life Fuel. Lyfe. Please do use my affiliate link. I am an affiliate. If you purchase from Life Fuel, I only receive just a small commission off that. But know that any products that I recommend to you, I personally use them or have used them with clients or both and can endorse them from that standpoint. I never ask you to check out a product that I haven't personally used. Another link in my bio is the Eros body scale, which actually measures skeletal muscle and body fat, so you can get a really good idea of where you stand, and there's a discount code for that, so check it out. Thorne Supplements is another company I have partnered with, and I have some marvelous products and suggestions on in my store. I have a little online Thorne store. So thank you for joining me. And until next time, I wish you every blessing wherever you are in the world. Bye-bye.